civic site central to Iran's nuclear program. We don't want escalation and a full-scale war. We continue to call for dialogue and for diplomacy. As I've said for many days now, we are deeply concerned about any escalation in the region, and we want to see diplomacy, dialogue and de-escalation. We've been upfront about the challenge facing the international community, that is, dealing with the threat posed by any Iranian nuclear weapons program and dealing with the risk of regional escalation. And that's why Australia called upon Iran to come to the table and abandon any nuclear weapons program. Iran didn't come to the table just as it has repeatedly failed to comply with its international obligations. We urge Iran not to take any further action that could destabilise the region. Happy to take questions.
Prime Minister, could you just explain why you waited until now to explicitly express your support for this action? And is it because you want Australia to remain a non-central player in this conflict?
Well, we aren't a central player in this conflict, that's just a fact. And what we do is we run an orderly, stable government, but I made comments about this in 3 countries over recent days, and my comments today are perfectly consistent with that.
Prime Minister, if I could just ask about, there's a concern from the US around retaliatory action when it comes to sleeper cells in the US. That's something that's been well reported over the last few hours. There's a sense that Iran has the capability to attack European and American nationals beyond the US and the Middle East is also what's being reported. Was this discussed today, and what would be your message to Australians who are seeing this sort of thing coming out in terms of any concern about a threat here in Australia?
Well, precisely why we're calling for a de-escalation, and obviously we are opposed to any action against Australians or indeed against anyone else. What we want to see, as President Trump has said, is peace going forward. There's an opportunity for that to occur.
Can I just
Hang
add
on.
to that?
Well.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Kerry, I'll just add to that. Obviously, there are always risks, not only from escalation in the region, but also potential for risk more broadly. I indicated publicly this morning that I have asked my department to consider whether there's any alteration to travel advice more generally, which we will obviously make sure is up to. Well, we don't discuss what happens.
We don't talk about what we discuss at NSC. Yeah.
Prime Minister, can you confirm or providing details to whether Australia has provided any military support via our bases in the region, or indeed any signal support via our joint facilities here in Australia?
Well, we don't talk about intelligence matters, but we confirm, of course, that this was a unilateral action by the United States.
Prime Minister, what intelligence has been shared with your government about whether Iran was imminently at the point of having a nuclear weapon? And following on from James' question,
refer to previous answer.
You're a government that talks about transparency and talks about being upfront with the Australian people. So was a facility like Pine Gap used in this attack? Was information that's been garnered there used as part of this attack on Iran?
We are upfront, but we don't talk about intelligence, obviously. But we've made very clear this was unilateral action taken by the United States.
Well, you briefed about the nuclear weapon. Sorry, Prime Minister, you briefed about the nuclear weapon.
Here.
Prime Minister, if you could just return to the first question, why did it take 24 hours for Australia to express unequivocal support for this action by its closest ally? And what does this say about our relationship with the US under your government?
We issued a statement yesterday.
Prime Minister, is Australia reviewing its terror threat level in the wake of what's been happening? And again, was there any discussions or is there any concerns surrounding potential sleeper cells within this country?
Look, we constantly under a position where the ASIO Director General and our security intelligence agencies are constantly engaged in monitoring. There's been no change in any of the advice that has been issued.
Prime Minister, PM Starmer noted that his government was given prior warning of the US action in Iran, I think quite shortly before it took place, but he was given warning. Was ours?
The UK has been one of the countries that's been at the negotiating table with Iran for many years on its nuclear weapons program.
Just to follow up, so was your government briefed prior to the attack?
This was unilateral action taken by the United States.
PM, you weren't briefed? Is that the...
This was unilateral action taken by the United States.
Prime Minister, have you spoken to President Donald Trump since the G7 summit?
No.
Prime Minister, you talk about Tehran coming back to the negotiating table. They were in discussions with the US 10 days ago. Israel attacked it. It actually bombed its chief negotiator. Regardless of what you think about the regime, what incentive, hasn't this blown Tehran's trust in the negotiation process? And Minister Wong, you were asked this morning whether you think whether Australia believes these attacks are legal under international law. Can we clarify, do you believe they were legal under international law?
Well, Iran has an interest very clearly as well, I believe, in ensuring that there is not an escalation in the region. And that is the incentive that they have. The United States have made clear their position, and we continue to call for dialogue. Had Iran complied with the very reasonable requests that were made, including by the IAEA, then circumstances would have been different. Here.
PM, last year when there were strikes on the Houthis in Yemen, the government did confirm that Australian resources were part of those strikes, that we refueled jets and so forth. Are you saying there was absolutely no Australian involvement whatsoever, refueling jets and nothing whatsoever?
Well, I can't be clearer than this was unilateral action taken by the United States. Phil.
Senator Wong, on your decision to withdraw our staff from the embassy in Tehran, was that a consequence out of fear for their safety, as in being hit by a bomb, or was it their safety that there may be reprisals on the ground in Tehran against US citizens and their allies?
Thanks, Phil. Obviously, that was a difficult decision to make. We've had to do it previously. Previous government had to do it in Kiev and in other parts of the world. It occurs from time to time. But I would say we were very conscious of the history in Iran, which I think is people well know, and the advice to me, which I discussed with the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, was to ensure we got our people out. Obviously, the situation in Iran is very distressing for Australians. We have over 3,000 Australians and their families who have registered with us as seeking to leave, and obviously airspace remains closed. We have deployed people to the Azerbaijani border in the event that more Australians are able to exit through that border.
Just here.
Just back to Anna's question, do you support the premise of the US attack? Oh, sorry. You support the US attack, but do you support the premise of the US attack, which is that Iran was imminently close to having nuclear weapons? And if so, what intelligence on that?
Well, the information has been clear that Iran has sought to increase the grade, which had been, there's no other explanation for it to reach 60 other than engaging in a program that wasn't about civilian nuclear power. And that was clear. It was also very clear over a period of time, and as early as a week ago, of course, at the G7, when President Trump left the G7, made it clear that Iran had an opportunity to comply. They chose not to, and there have been consequences of that. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Petrol prices.